welcome back to the program. And now to our story in brief. The Nigerian Air Force says its Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has destroyed an Islamic State of West Africa province ISWAP tactical headquarters in Kolaram village in Borno State. A statement by the Director of Air Force Information and Public Relations, Air Commodore Bikunle Daramola, says the onslaught is part of the military's new Operation Green Sweep 2, which was recently launched to fight against terrorists in the northeast. He explains that the attack was executed following a series of intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance missions. It showed that the presence of a significant number of ISWAP fighters in buildings under trees spread across the settlement, along with communication facilities with roof-mounted solar panels, defensive parapets, as well as suspected tunnels at various locations. He adds that 2 Air Force Alpha jets destroyed to the location, or rather deployed to the location, scored accurate hits, destroying some of the structures and equipment, while some of the terrorists were also killed. And away from that story, the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, that CISLAC, is recommending a clearly defined role for security agencies, and that's during elections, in order to avoid an overlap of functions. The recommendation, contained in a report on the involvement of Nigerian security agencies in 2019 general elections, also seeks easy identification for punishment where there are breaches. According to the report, 58 people lost their lives in violence during the presidential elections, while 17 deaths were recorded during the governorship polls. Our correspondent, Terry Kumi, reports.
Areas people are more interested in.
It's about 3 months after the 2019 elections, and reports from election observers are still pouring in.
This little contribution that CISLAC put together.
The Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, is launching its report on the involvement of security agencies in the elections.
It is worrisome how some political and social economic saboteurs and the enemies of our pledging democracy take advantage of some conduct of unprofessionalism being practiced by some security people to fuel unexpected attack on innocent voters, primarily for their selfish and unpatriotic interests.
According to the report, 58 people lost their lives during the 2019 presidential election and 17 during the governorship election. 17 of the deaths were due to blatant interference of security agencies, according to CISLAC.
All the agencies should carry out training on the principle of human rights, human enforcement and protection, and the principles of emotional intelligence. This will need to know that and rules of engagement. Rules of engagement need to be adhered to.
The Independent National Electoral Commission is represented by its National Commissioner in charge of voter education.
The Commission will continue to engage all the services through the instrumentality of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. To this end, the Commission and the various services will firm up and revise the protocols and rules of engagement for all security agencies involved or engaged in election security.
The report observed that the 2019 elections revealed serious abuses by the security agencies at the state level. It recommends that if additional security agencies are to be used in elections, their roles must be clearly spelled out to avoid an overlap of functions and for easy identification and punishment of breaches where they occur. It also recommends an upgrade of the capacity of the police to handle civil matters and the introduction of electronic voting. With other elections scheduled to hold before the end of the year, it is necessary to carefully analyze the advantages and disadvantages of huge security presence during elections going forward. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, let's head over to Benue, where youths from Zakibiam in Ukum Local Council to Otobi community of Otukpo local government area have vehemently rejected the erection and plan Ruga project in their community as they stage a peaceful protest to register their objections. In Otobi community, where the first Ruga project signage was erected, the community leaders and the youth sent a protest letter to the state government through the Otukpo local government chairman, Mr. George Ali. Well, leaders from Ukum local government vowed to resist the projects to the end. Yutse Makodi, the Benue state capital, say the people of Benue have suffered heavy casualty from herdsmen-related crisis, and they are in no way going to cede their land for Ruga settlement. Well, with the overlapping security issues confronting the nation, ranging from the indicting reports on security agencies to the controversial farm settlement proposal for cattle colonies, in spite of the president's promise to bring an end to Nigeria's insecurity challenge, is there an end in sight? Well, we're now being joined by a security expert, Mr. Kabiru Adamu, to sort of look at these issues and chart a way forward. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, I'd like to begin with the reactions to this proposed Ruga settlement. I know that there's been a lot of chatter around it. I mean, you just saw a peaceful protest by youth in Benue State. What is your take on this?
It shows clearly how the fabric of our society, our national unity, is in total disarray. It also shows how the current government has not managed information regarding some of its policies very well. Before you roll out such a policy, you need to get the buy-in of the state governors, you need to get the buy-in of stakeholders, and of course people within the community. So clearly that hasn't been done, and one is not surprised because there isn't a cabinet in place, as it were. The government departments that are meant to do that, engage the communities and get that kind of buy-in, have not been as effective as they should be. We've not seen them acting, and going out and explaining government policies to people enough to get the buy-in of the local communities.
All right, so the question is the problem with the idea itself? Is it with the timing or with the approach, like you mentioned, that is being employed?
As far as I'm concerned, this idea is not new, so it's nothing novel. Growing up as a child, I knew there were Ruga settlements in Plateau State, all over the Federation actually, there were Ruga settlements. But I think the difference now is that government is actively supporting the development of these settlements. In the past, perhaps government was not in the forefront of the development of these settlements. So yes, the idea is not novel, quote unquote. The approach can definitely be improved. Like I said, obviously there is no buy-in of the state governors and the local community. So that kind of approach would most likely not be successful, especially given the timing of the kind of incidences that we've seen attributed to herdsmen. Whether it's true, this is actually herdsmen that are carrying out those incidences or not, the general idea on the street is that these are armed herdsmen that are invading local populations.
Okay. Sorry, just before I let you go, I'd like us to briefly talk about the report that was released by CISLAC about, security personnel involvement in the 2019 elections. Now, this report largely indicted, well, it commended security agencies, but then there was an indictment saying that there was too much involvement and irregularities. And we know that we're counting down to elections in November. So how do you think the military especially should participate in elections moving forward?
Well, like the INEC rep mentioned at the handing over of the report, he indicated that the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security will continue to engage with these security agencies. So I'm a bit surprised by the CISLAC report. It did not mention or take note of the role being played by ISES, the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security. ISES was very specific in defining the roles of the various agencies, and from the rules spelled out by ISES, we know that the military was not supposed to engage in any way in the polling centers, as well as in direct the electoral process, as it were, but in terms of protecting electoral assets. So if there were discrepancies or non-compliance to these rules, what I would have expected in terms of recommendations, conduct a review and to take corrective measures in terms of penalizing those agencies that fail to carry out their functions under that ISES. I haven't seen that yet, 3 months down the road. So going to the elections in Bayelsa and in Kogi, I would expect to see a greater compliance rule by INEC. Because remember that custodians of the electoral process.
Mr. Kabiru Adamu, I wish we had more time to discuss, but we'd like to appreciate your thoughts on the program. We'll be speaking with Mr. Kabiru Adamu, a security expert. Well, that's it on Lunchtime Politics. Thank you for watching. And don't forget, you can join the conversation on all our social media platforms. Have a wonderful day.